Good evening, Malaysia and followers from around the world. There has been a spread of political parties and NGOs calling for an anti-hopping law in Malaysia. Such a law is supposed to stop politicians from jumping from their parties to another party, and possibly in their actions, it can lead to a federal or a state government collapsing. But there are many hurdles, such as politicians not leaving, but getting fired or forced to leave, or an entire party leaving a coalition or a government. And should our election law allow recall elections to be held instead? And what are these recall laws? Joining us tonight is Datuk Seri Azalina Othman, the MP for Pengerang in Johor since 2004. She also created history by being the first female holder of the deputy speakership. She was also the minister in the Prime Minister's department. She was also the tourism minister and minister of youth and sports. She has been the prime mover of this recall bill. And joining me as well is my co-host, Philip Golingay from the Star. Datuk Seri, welcome on board. Good to have you. Datuk Seri, can you share with us what are the mechanics and the merits of this recall bill that you're trying to push in Parliament? Thank you.
Okay, thank you, RealChunWai and Philip for this opportunity. I've never before been interviewed by two persons at one go. Usually one interviewer but to have two co-hosts, it's very challenging. Okay. All right, before I answer your question, I think you must separate two things between anti-hopping and recall. Anti-hopping is a very straightforward concept. And I think you look at the Penang state government, they have this enactment. If you move, doesn't matter what, the chair is empty. So the anti-hopping law, sometimes people see it as a preventive law so that we don't encourage you to move. So you move, you're penalized. It doesn't take any other circumstances except it doesn't want to even question the justification of your moving. Now, what really triggered me to draft a recall bill was because I have been talking about this, as you know, even I was a deputy speaker, I talked to a lot of friends in other political parties, international bodies, and especially with Bersih. And Bersih is continuously talking about fair and equal election. And we have been continuously talking for months. And when I heard the day when Tan Sri Muhyiddin, YB Pago, offered on TV live as a settlement to a lot of opposition for a CSA, we've been hearing rumors about a CSA, but we only thought it was just money, for stand down and for political ceasefire. But I didn't know that it included so many other things. So when I heard the offer made on TV, one of it that was offered was an anti-hopping law. Okay, that is the first situation. Fine. So I take it to understand that, wow, government is really progressing. Okay. Then after that, when subsequently, before Parliament start, there is a circulation of the order paper. They will tell us, Parliament will be open and what's on the table agenda. I couldn't find an anti-hopping bill, a draft bill. I couldn't find it. So I was putting two and two together. On one hand, the Prime Minister then was offering anti-hopping as part of the CSA. And then in the order paper, there was none. And I knew the sitting would be 15 days. So I said to myself, now, if you just go on anti-hopping, one of the challenges is that it doesn't take automatic, it takes automatic drop. Means you move, you lose your seat. So what about scenarios that you just raised just now? You spoke about being terminated from the political party. You spoke about coalition government. Remember, you just raised in your opening statement. And there are many situations that will make the voters not happy with the MPs. So these circumstances are called recall. Means the voters want back the seat and want to decide. I think if you rightly or wrongly, have you remembered how Tan Sri Syaril Johor Bahru? He was under BN member, UMNO. Then
he contended as an independent.
And then he went in and he won again. Because in usual situation, if you do even for a by-election, and the circumstances of hopping, the percentage of those who want the seat to win back is very high. But sometimes the voters are happy with the personality. So the recall that I came up with some help of some NGOs and talking continuously with Bersih, looking at Bersih sample and talking to them and a lot of consultants on their part, was that this could be a compromise for government now. Anti-hopping law, if government do proceed with a recall. But the recall on its own may not be adequate without amendment to the constitution, without amendment to the constitution, and without enacting one hopping law. So it must be a combined effort between the constitutional amendment to allow freedom of association, to allow the MPs, and then to come up with the second layer, which is the anti-hopping law, then to add on a recall procedure. So that was what my proposal is all about.
Datuk Seri, so before the anti-hopping law or the recall bill is proposed, obviously you need to, as you said, you need to amend the federal constitution first, right? By 2/3 majority. That has to be the first step.
Yes.
Okay. So the second question here is that in Penang, they have this anti-hopping law, but a person need not join another party. They just declare themselves as an independent. So that would not affect any need for an election. Suppose there's a recall law. Is there such a need for that?
Well, that is more of a technical strategy. Because if you read at the article of the Constitution on 10.1 and 10.2, it's a bit different. Because when you touch anything on the Constitution, you have to take 2/3 amendment. But under 10.2, it says when you do a law, you don't need a 2/3. So some people want to read it separately by saying, well, it's not really touching on what the Constitution says you can or you cannot do. So Penang went on that basis by just having that, by saying that, well, we're just going to have this law. But whether that particular law has been used, will be utilized, will be mooted, or is being challenged is a separate discussion. But at least Penang is touching on that discussion, And our other states, where, as you know, I've been talking to a lot of the Barisan Nasional per state, since I'm also the BN legal task force. I went to Perlis, Sabah, Pahang, Johor, Negeri Sembilan. The response was almost the same, because I think in this situation after PRU 14, to be very honest, UMNO Barisan Nasional are the one that can be considered one of the biggest victim of jumping. Because as you know, after we lost, the whole party not collapsed but panicked, and people were moving because they really wanted to be able to continue being an effective member of parliament. That's the justification that they were using. But we lost more than 10 seats, and that really hurt us badly, because as you know, for us being a huge party, 60 over years, with our manpower of 3.5 million members, and the way we run our election campaign is like a full, huge, big American first board company lah, because we have a lot of tasking, committees, money spent, intellectual property, data collection. So that costs a lot of money, just not based on one candidate. Like for Pengerang, I've got 40,000 voters, or give or take. I've got 3 seats, 1 parliament, 2 don't. I have got members of UMNO, almost 10,000, which is like almost 25% to 30% of the voters. Now you tell me, everybody wants to be an elected representative.
Yeah.
And if assuming there is no control, and then we work so hard for A to run, and then suddenly A decides to jump, that's painful, And I think I can imagine the other MPs. But of course, some political parties are very sensitive to this hopping, because they think that it's not a fair allegation or accusation. And some of them justify by saying, well, we did this to save the voters, we did this for the people. So there's a lot of fluid reasons given, but nevertheless, for the party, especially from a big political party, and the spending of time and money, it hurts us lah. But maybe from the voters' perspective or the MP themselves, maybe they can justify on their own. It depends on who you talk to.
Yeah, could I just add, ChunWai?
Yeah, sure, please.
Okay, Datuk, you mentioned that UMNO was also a victim of this. However, as a Sabahan, in terms of history, UMNO actually benefited from this hopping. For example, the PBS government in 1994 fell because UMNO encouraged the jumping, we call them Katak, from jumping from PBS to UMNO or different party. So it's very interesting that I think it's new politics where because of karma or because of the new political reality, UMNO has taken a different stance on hopping. Thanks.
Well, I think, Philip, that's a very interesting point, because to be very honest, you're right, because you cannot deny the fact that Sabah politics is totally different from Semenanjung. That's number one. You can even go back before even the entrance of UMNO into Sabah politics, right? And okay, and also, have you not recalled when the Prime Minister then, Tan Sri Muhyiddin, spoke about fixed term limit of the Prime Minister? And if you recall, in Sabah, there was a fixed term limit, remember? It's just that a chief minister from the coalition government rotated the seat, remember not? Years ago, I think it was like 25 or 30 years ago.
Yes, the 2 years rotation system.
Rotation, yeah. And then there was like so many personalities coming in. But towards the end, when UMNO came in, they decided to change that because they wanted stability. So that was the reason that, they wanted a party from Semenanjung. And then they were fixing the term of the chief minister. So that's a very interesting point, because when now we are under the CSA, they're offering that the term limit for the prime minister to be 10 years. My question was, why stop there? Why not go for chief minister or go for ministers or deputy minister? At least everybody will be happy, not the same person holding the post forever and ever. But that's an interesting concept, especially for politicians. Wanting to share power is one thing. Wanting to share responsibility and tasking also is another, but to see how it happens. But then again, I have to pause here. When we lost the election for PRE 14, a lot of those in the Supreme Council were not holding posts. What happened was that the first coalition by Pago, the personalities from UMNO are personalities not holding very important posts in the Supreme Council. Usually the reading is that when you're in Supreme Council, the top 10, you are the ministerial quality, and that's why everybody's rushing to run and rushing to win. But the vice president number 2 didn't have a post, vice president number 3 didn't have a post, the deputy president doesn't have a post, the top 10 in the party don't have a post. I'm top 10. So that's a tall order. And I knew way back then when I was doing few articles on coalition government, and it's been proven most coalition government will only last 22 months. So the first coalition that when UMNO was doing with Bersatu, when it was not Perikatan Nasional yet, I knew that it wouldn't last, because in a coalition government, the template must always be party on party basis, not on personality basis. But what happened was that to fill in the cabinet post, they were using personalities from the party. So of course, when a person is made a cabinet minister, they don't feel that they are responsible to the party, and they don't attend party meetings. They don't explain party policies or vice versa. So definitely there will be a breakdown. And I could see there was going to be a breakdown, and true enough, there was a breakdown. So basically what I'm saying is that maybe the only way that Yang Mohamed Pago could have retained himself was that, I believe, he could have offered the MOU or the CSA or the CSU earlier during the emergency period. And secondly, if he did a musical chair by putting in the party leaders, I think he would still be intact in power. That's my theory, but I may be wrong.
Okay, just to take a step back to what Philip has said, obviously that the UMNO suffered the most because many of his MPs defected to Bersatu. Let's not forget, in the case of Sabah, the Barisan Nasional government collapsed in Sabah because Tan Sri, what they call it, Shafi'i Abdal, allowed defections. Although, of course, he now says with a straight face that he doesn't encourage party hopping, but it was purely because of party hopping that resulted in the Barisan government forming the new government in Sabah. Datuk Sri Azalina, in a very oxymoron and a paradoxical way, that the government is now pushing for these laws and reforms at a time when it is actually very weak. Previously, when the government was very strong, nobody paid much attention to party hopping, despite the civil society calling for party hopping. Why do you think that this strange way has led to this chorus of calls for anti-hopping laws?
Well, I think you cannot deny with the outcome of the PRU 14, there are many now new political Malay parties. And before we only had a difference, we only had very obviously PAS or UMNO, remember? And it was easy for the voters to make a decision between an extremist religious party compared to a more middle Malaysia party. But now you have got multiple options. I think the good side of it, the good take of it is the fact that the voters are able to choose. You know, it will be more on the plate, on the buffet table. But the bad side of it is, of course, you will cause instability. And I think this is what has happened. No one have denied that one of the trigger causes of all these challenges is the fact that our constitution, under Article 43, uses the word of having the confidence among the MPs to decide who to be Prime Minister. So it's like the MPs that make the decision, not the party. That's one. Number two, confidence is a very subjective manner, although you can say, well, you know, confidence based on who supports, statutory declaration, vote of confidence, but it will move. What made you think, while we're talking on Monday, there's not going to be another set of movement being done? Well, the only difference is that maybe the king, the Tuanku Agong, has said, well, you know, enough is enough. I would like the government to focus on COVID recovery, economic recovery. But until and unless you look at amendments to the law, the constitution, our constitution, is allowing a lot of musical chair. We don't have a fixed term limit like what happens in the UK. The 5-year cycle is a 5-year cycle. We don't have that. Anyone can pull the plug for a general election, depending on, well, you know, we're not going to continue to support, okay? Then either you resign or you call for an election. It can be done. Less than even the cycle of the 5-term term limit. But nevertheless, the main structure is the constitution itself that allows, that makes it extremely fluid. I've been using the word fluid because I'm trying to explain that it is a whole political structure that we have to look at. Yeah. Kalau tidak, I think whatever happens, my assessment PRU 15, you may have more independent candidate winning. Yeah. Some people from my party says, why not the elections run by party base? So that if the party moves away, in the sense of, assuming if BN gets 80 seats, we win 80 seats, and then somebody jumps, it comes back to us. It's our seat. And then we just replace the personality. So some people are talking about that. So, but it depends so much on how the government wants to look at the MOU lah. I'm not aware.
Okay, Philip, before you jump in, I just want to go back to the original focus of this discussion, of this conversation, which is basically recall elections. Dr. Sri, can you elaborate a bit on who can petition for a recall election, and what are the pros and cons of this such mechanism?
I think if you look at most countries in the world, a lot of this recall procedure is done by the voters themselves. And the reason is because not necessarily the voters want a by-election. The petition is done by the voters to make a decision whether they want the MP, the elected representative, to stay or to change. The reason is because in some constituency, they're quite comfortable with the personality put up there. So they don't think changing it will make any difference, because even if you call for a by-election, the same person can also offer he or herself. It doesn't say, well, you're nullified from running. So if you're already popular there and they like you and they want you, and then you leave the party that put you there, or you leave your bloc or your loyalty, the voters may look at it differently. And you talk about recall. I mean, I can mention some countries on recall. You've got Argentina, Canada, Colombia, Ecuador, Germany, India, Latvia, Mexico, New Zealand, Philippines. It's not Peru, New Zealand, Taiwan, Ukraine. It's not something new. It's done before.
US as well.
But basically what we're trying to do now is to give it back to the voters. Now, what I noticed is that when I was doing my roadshow, I think a big political party is quite uncomfortable with recall. Maybe because they feel that they have to go through the system again. But maybe for independent or smaller party, this is something that they find that they are able to maneuver. But then again, depends on the percentage of the petition. If the petition is like 40%, I think a huge political party would have more advantage because their members can become the petitioners. That's what I think. But maybe for a smaller party, they don't like a huge number because I'm just suggesting 40% on the petition. But maybe what I'm suggesting is something that the government can accept or amend. It's still the government call. But the difference is that when you move, the seat can be evaluated again, can be questioned again, whether the continuity or the petitioners are the voters or you just lose it automatically. But government has to be very certain whether is this the platform that government wants to go in for PRU 15. I think government may have time if they want to do it this way, but it's still the government's call.
Philip?
Yeah, okay. Datuk, this recall thing is very technical. So I'll give you a real life situation, see whether it fits into recall. Okay, from the experience of UMNO President Zahid Hamidi, there are MPs who do not obey or listen to party's decision. So, okay, just say we take Anwar Musa. So what can the party do actually? We have an MP that do not listen to the party. Can the party recall him or can the voters recall him because he's not listening to the party? Thanks.
All right, thanks, Philip. Honestly, Philip, I think if you must be aware, we are very much British system. We are Westminster system. One of the most important criteria for us as a Westminster system is that we have immunity in the chambers, which is under the huge dome of democracy. I call it the August House or the Temple of Democracy because it means that a lot of people don't understand what it means, but that's what it means. What it means is that as an MP, I am able to cross the floor, carpet crossing, they call it hop even on issues. That's my prerogative. Now, if my party wants to punish me on decisions that I make when I'm in parliament debating and voting, my party can be challenged. It's unconstitutional. It's my prerogative. Now, if a decisions of the party which transmitted or translated as to be outside from the processes of parliamentary duties, of course, you are able to take disciplinary action. But if you notice, during the period of Pago as Prime Minister and now Burrow as Prime Minister, and during the development of issue, even I myself have been writing a lot. I never got reprimanded by my party, telling me that, well, this is the coalition government, behave yourself, keep the thoughts to yourself. I never had that letter coming to me. So it means to say whatever that you are working on or having an opinion in the processes of the parliamentary voting duty issue, it's extremely more allowable because of the immunity factor, the immunity umbrella. But nevertheless, in some political parties, which I have noticed, there are certain issues, for example, a gender issue, that in some political parties, they don't allow that freedom of expression. So they're supposed to just support and to vote. But it doesn't happen to us. And if you recall, Gua Musang didn't move with the party decision, remember? Gua Musang sat on his own, remember? He didn't say he's independent, but he says that he's not going to be part of it. And yesterday, when Gua Musang spoke, he was very adamant speaking about the experience and the historical side of UMNO and then Semangat 46. And he was trying to indicate that, the professionalism of being a politician and a member of parliament. So to answer Philip's question directly, simply, is that I think you have to differentiate between your duties and responsibilities as an MP. Okay, but what I see for me now is remember last year, there was a lot of allegation of no Anwar, no DAP, no Anwar, no DAP. And then when the president party is even talking to anyone, you're an agent of DAP, agent of Pakatan, remember? But the MOU, surprisingly, has killed that narrative. I mean, for me, I'm different because, all this in chamber, in parliament, those are your friends, agree to disagree, disagree to agree. That's a different ballpark. But for a very conservative Malay party, no Anwar, no DAP, no Anwar, no DAP. Today, it's like, yes Anwar, yes DAP, yes Anwar, yes DAP. So maybe the MOU is about sharing on certain lawmaking process, but not be part of cabinet. I don't know whether that's what the government is looking at. But the change is happening now. That's what I see. Could be because of COVID, the pandemic, or the Tita Diraja.
Datuk, I have, sorry, I have two questions.
Maybe I got a follow-up question.
Okay, sure.
Okay, that was the scenario for the party. The party won't sack that MP. But what happened? Just say you take Gua Musang. The voters are not happy. So 30% or 40% of them decide to recall him. So is that possible that they recall Tunku Razali?
Yeah, of course. I think you cannot deny the fact that what you're doing is that you're not giving power to the voters. Every election only one day of power. You know, macam general election, oh, that's the power of the voters. This is about, as I mentioned many times, recall and anti-hopping is about the voters. It's about the people that voted the elected representative in. Well, maybe some politicians are nervous about it because, you know, they don't want to be reprimanded. And I always say that, I've only made this analogy that when you go for election, is that you're marketing yourself, well, you know, I'm the best, I'll be there, I'll pick up the phone, you call me, I'm there. But in reality, after they win, semua lari, man. Some MPs, you know, I'm up there, some MPs don't come to parliament. Okay, what about for the past few days? I'm sorry, I have to say, I'm a backbencher, the gang of 44, right? The ministers and deputy ministers' chair are empty. I mean, like, you sit in parliament 15 days for this session. People are raising issue, even however small. So when I was sitting up there before, I always go the ministers and deputy. I say, come on lah, one of you must be around. Some ministers got 2 deputy. You know, when people speak and you're there, you're not talking to the chair. It's a different feeling, you know, because you try to raise your concern of your constituency. You write letters, not necessarily they read the letters. And the reason why it's in parliament, same thing like select committee. You know, they shut down parliament for emergency during the period. Remember my letter to the AAG? I was furious because the select committee was supposed to be an oversight body. Are you telling me because of COVID, we can't even work? We can't even ask questions? And the whole purpose of a select committee is to ask the ministers and the policymakers and the government servant to be answerable. And if we had a select committee, a lot of questions will be unanswered, so that when we go to parliament, we can cut short on the Q&A because we already got the answers. But select committee asking ministers to come, oh my God, the world is coming to an end. The only thing is the PAC lah. PAC is because it's already regulated, but PAC is for justifying on money already spent. But select committee, the special select committee, is about the ongoing policy. I mean, recently I called for I'm in charge of the women affairs and children. Okay, thank God the minister couldn't attempt. She sent in the deputy. But you know lah, deputy minister, and I was a deputy speaker. What can you do or say to bind? You can just become like, you know, official message carrier. Yes, yes, thank you. I acknowledge. I'll come back to you. I'll speak to the minister. That's all you do. So this is the issue with us. And then we are saying, oh, we want parliament to sit more days. Oh, we want it. Yeah, but if parliament is only sitting for backbenchers and opposition, but the front bench has got no time, so what's the point? So that's why we have to really change the way we look at parliament. What is the role of parliament? It's not just about a very democratic process, but it's about being answerable, the check and balance, because you're spending the Rakyat's money. People are talking, everybody's on social media, but we are not addressing it because you know what? In parliament, you cannot lie. If you lie, that's when the punishment will come in. You have to be responsible and accountable and speak the truth. That's why I wanted the Attorney General to be a political appointee vis-a-vis separate from the prosecutor. And the chief prosecutor can be someone that is, you know, process of judiciary nominating. But the Attorney General is like the law minister who comes to parliament and be answerable for policy decision on law. That's what I wanted, so that you answer. We are the lawmakers, answer to us, the lawmakers. But people are sensitive lah, you know, why you want to question, that is not your role. Tak boleh lah like that. And last but not least, I have to emphasize this. This coalition government or any coalition government, sometimes the biggest losers are also the voters themselves. The voters are confused. People are confused. They don't know who you're representing. I don't know how the MOU is going to affect the hardcore supporters for the opposition. I don't know. But for my party, they're all asking questions on the ground. Hey, why do you want to sign? Why? What are we gonna get out of it? There's no budget yet. Why are we signing? So a lot of questions even we can answer.
Okay, Datuk, before I move on to my next question, I need to say this lah, because I've been following the proceedings on TV. Many of the front benchers have been missing. No ministers, no deputies, and the situation is equally as bad on the opposition side. There was one occasion when Seri was talking. I looked around, I found that there were no opposition MPs at all. So yesterday, there were actually only 19 MPs present at some point. All of them berebut want to have meetings, and then when meetings are held, nobody attends, which is really a sad case and a reflection of the state of our Dewan Rakyat. Now, I want to bring up two issues which was brought up by Mak Sabu and Dr. Mahathir. Mak Sabu asked this question to you, that is, what happens if a whole party leaves a government and join another coalition? And Dr. Mahathir questioned the wisdom of having anti-hopping or any kind of law around that area, because that he thinks that it will be difficult for government to be formed if you have such a law of preventing people from having an association to form a new government or an unstable government. Your take on this?
Well, of course, if you look from that perspective, it's true. Because again, I go back to my presentation earlier when I spoke about the Constitution allowing that to happen. See, the source is also from Article 40, 43 of the Constitution, forming of the cabinet. The Constitution doesn't say, well, there's a limit period or you can only form 3 cabinets a year or government. It doesn't say that. That freedom in the Constitution, read with all the concept of democracy, allows that freedom. Now, our challenge today that we as politicians are facing is because of COVID pandemic. COVID changed the whole scenario of our system. Maybe because if we didn't have COVID, there'd be so many, one general election right after the Sheraton move, maybe that could have been it. I don't know. Maybe it would have been easier to sort out all this inconsistency. But because of COVID pandemic, not only was around the corner, was given to us on that platter, it was very hard because there was a lot of things that could not be addressed that could also cause the frustration. But again, it's what Mat Sabu and Yang Berhormat Mat Sabu and also Yang Berhormat Langkawi raised, Tun Mahathir raised, it's true. You cannot stop it. Because if you talk about our main source of power, the power play in the Constitution, there's no specific formattation of when, how, who, why. It can go on and on as we speak also. Now, the bigger, of course, we know as why the king interjected in his speech by saying that no, winner don't take all, losers don't take all, means losers don't lose all, winners don't win all. Maybe he wants a ceasefire. Okay, personally, if I go back to emergency, I thought it would be more of a unity government during emergency. I thought it would be more of an emergency war cabinet. I thought that would have been it, because then you would really address the pandemic issue more than anything else. And then everybody would have calmed down. But it didn't happen that way. Nevertheless, right now, we don't have anything on hopping law. We don't have anything on recall. We have a constitution that allows mobility, moving. It allows anything. So I think the MPs, the political parties, and the rakyat have to make a decision whether this is something that they want to address seriously or not. Even now, even before PRU 15. Now, if they don't address and it's not brought up and the government signed for a MOU on anti-hopping, and then the anti-hopping will have to wait at the next session or next year, between you and me, legally, anything can happen in between. And no one can say it can't happen.
Okay. Philip, one last question before we wrap it up for Datuk Sri.
Datuk, do you think your recall move, will it be successful? Will it happen? Or there will be another form of it?
I don't know, because, private members' bill has never been done by government backbencher. It's always done by opposition bench. And you remember 355? 355 by YB Marang was only reading the first reading, but it wasn't even debated, nor was it voted on. It's still up to the government. It's not in the order paper yet, my recall bill. The speaker has not officially rejected it. But I had a chat with the Prime Minister. He understood where I came from. I made my own effort to meet all the political party leaders from my party, opposition party, trying to explain it. Legally or technically, they understood the importance to give confidence to the voters. The speaker's all right as long as everything's in order. So we have to wait. If it goes in the order paper, maybe it's a good start. If it goes in the order paper, the government allow first reading, also is a better start. But if it goes in the order paper, then the government say, well, we're going to take over and let the Attorney General evaluate and maybe do a hybrid or a combination. That would be a much better step. Because at the end of the day, in our system, the government business is more important than ordinary members' business. But nevertheless, what's important now, my conclusion for this discussion is people are aware now of their rights. I think the rakyat sort of realize that, hey, you know, we can have a say beyond just every general election. And I think the rakyat may want to see this so that the rakyat can have more role to play with the MPs. This is what I sense, but you know, again, I have to qualify my statement.
Datuk Seri, where do you see your efforts and this calls for anti-hopping law or whatever you call it? Where would it lead to? Obviously, that it's not going to happen in this parliament sitting this time. It may take a little while, but obviously there has to be a lot of education process, not just with the rakyat, but as well as the buy-in from members of parliament and the respective parties. How do you see this leading to after your effort, your real formal effort?
But I think it depends how open-minded the political party is. I'm not talking about the MPs. The MPs, they really want the seat. They are the one that is you know, doing their job, being responsible to their voters. Some of them are holding position in their party. Some of them are not holding positions in their party. But I think the MP is really the MP from their perspective. If there's the law, they may pass, they may debate on it. But what's important for me is this take must be the take of every political party. For any political party to face PRU 15, they have to understand the choice of the candidate. If there is a structure, like I think if you recall, UMNO did try to sue those who jumped under breach of contract, but the case was settled outside when we became a coalition government. But political party have to have their own format on how to stop the jumping. But it depends very much on the political party. Now, as far as my party is concerned, UMNO, and Barisan Nasional, we're doing our own roadshow. We're trying to make future candidates understand what is expected of them. But if the government doesn't do a specific law for anti-hopping or amend the constitution or even have a recall law, well, that is how this government wants to look at it. But again, my conclusion would be, why put it in the MOU if you don't mean it? I mean, of course, I always ask that. But the cut-off point is July, right? 2022 for the MOU. So we have to see whether they are serious to put it on the table before July. They are serious enough to have their own concept of the bill, or they don't mind combining with my recall. I don't know. But I do have the bill ready. I think, I'm not saying it's perfect, but I know that it's already intact. It's a proper bill with a constitutional amendment. If government wants to fast track everything, it's there, you know. But if the government doesn't want and still wants to let Attorney General's chambers to still consider and evaluate and for cabinet to reach out, then it's still the decision of the government.
Thank you, Datuk Seri Azalina, for coming on board to share with us your thoughts on the anti-hopping laws, your recall election ideas. We feel that Malaysia definitely need more reforms of such nature to give the power to the rakyat and not just to the YBs. Thank you very much, and good evening, everybody, and thanks for joining in. Stay safe.
You too.